You are invited to hear the story of Ruth, and during the story you will see some of the characters represented by emojis. So let me introduce you to the key characters in the story of Ruth, which is a story of love, loyalty, faithfulness, family, and God's hand guiding from ruin to redemption. Meet Naomi and Ruth, who lived in the days when the judges ruled. In many ways, these two women were very different. They came from different generations. One was a mother of two sons, the other was not. One was an Israelite, the other was from Moab. What united them, however, was this one powerful thing: family. Ruth, the younger woman, was Naomi's daughter-in-law, but by the time we meet them here in the story, they are both widows. Naomi had arrived in Moab with her husband and two sons, but by now her husband and both sons had died, leaving her sad, bitter, and far from home. She did have her sons' widows for company, and one of them was especially devoted to her. Yes, you've guessed it, that devoted daughter-in-law was Ruth. Naomi decided to return to her hometown of Bethlehem. Although both her daughters-in-law started out on the journey with her, Naomi knew that life for them as widows would be tough, especially as foreigners in a strange land. So she tried to persuade them to go back to their families in Moab. One of the young women did so, but Ruth stood firm, saying these remarkable words: "Don't ask me to leave you and turn back. Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you live, I will live. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God." So back in Bethlehem, Naomi and Ruth began to plan for their future and how they would survive. It was the beginning of the barley harvest, and Ruth went out to look for food. She ended up picking up grain in the field of a man named Boaz, who just so happened to be a relative of Naomi. The Bible tells us that Boaz was a man of noble character, and after he found out a bit about her story, he showed her remarkable generosity. He made special arrangements for her so she could safely gather enough grain from his field. More than this, Boaz was so impressed by Ruth's loyalty to Naomi that he prayed for her, asking God to bless her. When Naomi heard what had happened, she was thrilled because Boaz had a special position in her family, that of being a family redeemer. This was a cultural practice in Israel, where if a man in the family died and he left behind a wife or children or land, it was a family redeemer's responsibility to marry the widow, take up the land and protect that family. Naomi carefully advised Ruth on how to make her case with Boaz. Ruth followed her mother-in-law's instructions to the letter. She went to Boaz and asked him if he would redeem the family and marry her. Once again, Boaz was amazed by Ruth's loyalty to Naomi and her family. He called her a virtuous woman and promised to help. Now, it happened that there was another relative who was closer to Naomi than Boaz, and he had to be offered the opportunity to play his part as the family redeemer. Boaz gave the relative first refusal on the land owned by Naomi's late husband. The man initially agreed until he realized buying the land would also mean marrying Ruth, the Moabite widow. "I can't redeem it," the relative replied, "because this might endanger my own estate. You redeem the land, I cannot do it." And so Boaz himself stepped in as the family redeemer and married Ruth. When in due course the couple had a son, the people of the town said to Naomi, "Praise the Lord, who has now provided a redeemer for your family. May this child be famous in Israel. May he restore your youth and care for you in your old age. For he is the son of your daughter-in-law who loves you and has been better to you than 7 sons." Naomi took the baby, cuddled and cared for him as if he were her own, and the boy was named Obed. So the story of Ruth ends with the birth of a son, Obed, the father of Jesse and the grandfather of King David. The period of the judges, the period in which everyone did as they pleased, gives way to the great king of Israel, David. Yet David, though a man after God's own heart, was not the king who would sit on the throne forever. David and Ruth's heir would be born in Bethlehem, like David and Obed before him. This heir, Jesus, would come to rule as king forever and be our true and great family redeemer.